Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and you guys really requested for this one. A lot has changed since 2.0 came about with all the new free Lightcones. If you're a new player or maybe a player returning to the game, it's going to be quite a bit of a tricky decisions. Ideally, we want to get all of them, and we will eventually. But today, we are not at eventually yet, so some decision has to be made in terms of allocation of resources. Previously, before 2.0, it was kind of straightforward. What you wanted to get is basically any of the Lightcones that the Herta shop, the 5-star ones that you can get for free. Let me just show you in the data bank so it's like bigger and more clearer. Like cruising the status C, the 5-star Lightcone, you want to get this instead of the 4-star equivalent because 5-star ones generally have better substats in terms of like the base stats of the Lightcone, and also passive is like slightly skills better. So if you were playing Huynh, you'll go for that. If you're playing Destruction, you'll likely go for the on the 4 of Aeon, assuming you don't have any of the limited Lightcones or standard 5-star Lightcones that you have to gacha. There are 4 of them, of course. You have Texture of Memories, you have Solitary Healing, Nihility, Preservation to work with. Generally, most people, if you're free to play, will go for the DPS Lightcones first because you want to hit your damage thresholds. So in this guide, I'm going to be actually supplementing that logic of focusing 5-star Herta shop Lightcones to go for DPS, and this is going to like solidify the rest of your account. Most accounts, and I'm thinking I have to talk about it very, very generally. Of course, if you have a certain Lightcone here and there that is limited, it's going to be very different. But if you are a player that is like generally don't have much Lightcones in your account, you want to go for the Harmony Lightcones first. And here's the reason why. Let's say you're playing Tingyun, you're playing Yukong, you're playing Bronya or whatever not, you will realize that you don't have enough 4-star Lightcones that are maybe good and versatile enough to put on any character. In the past, no pun intended, past and future was the only one. It wasn't very great because it wasn't really very useful with a lot of characters and it wears off after using a skill. Very tricky to use, needs to really fine-tune. And the 5-star equivalent Bronya signature Lightcone just power creeps this totally. The new one, Dreamvale Adventure, I actually really like. For a free-to-play player, it gives a lot of buffing and you can control it. So when let's say your Tingyun does a basic attack, your whole team gets this buff that increases your whole team by basic attack by a certain amount, starts from 12% and goes all the way up to Super Imposition 5. So if your team uses a skill, your whole team gets a skill damage increase also. So it's basically the most recent ability that the Tingyun used. So if she uses an out, then your whole team gets an out damage bonus. You can kind of control it, and this is much better because your whole team gets a buff, which is really very nice in my opinion. Quite versatile also because any character will use either basic attack, skill or ultimate. Much better than past and future. So if you're a player just starting out, don't have much Harmony Lightcones, go for Dreamvale Adventure. I think this is your like safest bet for something that is immediately usable. When you get a better Harmony Lightcone, you can always swap it out. But nowadays people are like playing with 2-3 Harmony characters, so you need a lot of Lightcones. Having one at S5, not a bad thing in my opinion. So the other one that I think is actually really strong is The Day the Cosmos Fell. Before in like version 1. Before 2.0 basically, Erudition Lightcones are kinda mid if you didn't have the signature 5-star Lightcones. So you see here, whereas attack is increased by 16%, but if you are attacking an enemy with 2 of the enemies with the same weakness, so if you're playing like physical into a physical weakness or Herta into the pure fiction and there's ice weakness, you gain crit damage increase of 20% straight away. This is a free Lightcone that is very general to use because you most likely will be switching your Erudition characters out depending on the enemy typing. So you more or less will get this crit damage. And free crit stats on Erudition characters very valuable because you realize a lot of the other Lightcones actually don't have that. So Day of Cosmos Fell is very nice if you're looking to clear pure fiction and you want a bit more consistency. Start off at like Super Imposition 1, slowly increase, you don't need to pressure yourself. The other one, Seriousness of Breakfast, now is not as good because although it's like a slight damage increase, crit damage is a lot better given that the requirements like to proc this second effect here, crit damage increase by 20%, it's just attacking 2 enemies with the same weakness, which is not a very hard thing. If you're left with 1 enemy without a weakness, probably you're already playing like other DPS character that can burst down that unit also. So that is like my opinions about the priority order of what I will get for like number 1 and number 2. If you are looking for an abundance Lightcone, I think Quid Pro Quo is still the best out of the 2 of them, and it's very strong. We don't have a Herta Lightcone for Quid Pro for abundance yet, and this is very good because you can funnel like energy to your other teammates. It is a bit of RNG, a bit of luck. You can control the way the luck goes depending on what the energy of your teammates are, but still free energy for abundance characters generally I think is very solid. This What Is Real is the other Abundance Lightcone, which is very, very niche. You increase the break effect, which is wasted on majority of Abundance characters right now. And your basic attack restores your HP for the wearer by a certain amount, which is very like, for lack of better word, a selfish playstyle where you don't really buff your team, you really focus about individual excellence, which is not what you really want from an Abundance character. You want them to like help out the team. I think Quick Pro Quo is like pretty strong. So, the next one is actually the hardest category, Fermata versus its Showtime for Nihility. Most people now are playing quite a bit of Nihility, especially with Acheron coming out and Pella being so good. I think people will keep moving in that direction. I think its Showtime is probably the better one if you don't care too much about break effect, since all Nihility characters generally are okay with running effect hit rate. And even if you don't want to run this effect hit rate, the attack loss is not very significant. So whenever you inflict a debuff on an enemy, you gain a stack of Trick, you stack us up to 3 times, so at S1 you get an 18% damage buff already. And debuff is proc by Pella, DOTs are also debuffs, so Kafka also stacks debuffs on enemies. So it's very easy to get this max stacks of 8 to get 18% here. So can be used by a lot of characters, very versatile, and you will be spending good amount of investment if you're playing Nihility characters. If you can get their effect hit rate to 80% or higher, maybe you're comboing with the other Lightcone, the Pan-Galactic Commercial Enterprise, the yellow one that gives you more attack as well. It could be quite interesting because you get a lot of attack from just the Lightcone and the 2-piece relic set alone. So that is like some of my thoughts. For Fermata, on the other hand, is a bit trickier. I would say it really is a bit more niche, but if you're playing a character like Sampo, you're playing a character like Kafka, and you don't have any other Lightcone, this might be still quite viable because break effect is okay to have, not a bad thing for DOT characters since it's their alternative source of damage, and they just increase the amount of shock wind shear, which is exactly what those characters need. So niche, but Fermata likely will outperform it for those specific cases. That's my thoughts on Nihility. You can't go wrong with either one in my opinion. The next up, what I think is going to be decent to consider would be this Lightcone over here. This is Destiny's Threat for Wolven. It's a tricky one, but I think a character in future that is maybe Preservation that does a bit of damage could use this because it scales very nicely with your defense. For every 100 defense that a wearer has, increases the wearer's damage dealt by 0.8 up to a max increase of 32%. This is at Super Imposition 1. So of course you can go all the way up to I think like 3k plus defense or something like that. That is a massive amount of increase. I think it's like 4k. I can't do math right now of the top fly. I think it's like 4k defense, and most preservation characters can hit that amount as long as you give them like a couple of defense percentage gear. Might be tricky because it's a 4-star, but I don't think it should be a huge issue. And effect rest is also really nice. So this is like a long-term investment. I think it's pretty good, especially if your defensive character has the ability to do damage. Other than that, there's not really much damaging option like cones for now that converts your defense straight away into attack. So this one, interesting to consider Destiny's Threats for Wolven. The only alternative for preservation, who else is that? We Are Wildfire. Yeah, this is absolutely garbage. It only is like at the start of battle, all damage is decreased for 5 turns. This is really bad. Like a lot of people were like debated at the start of the game to build this because it was given for free, I think, and it was the only Lightcone. But very quickly we will want to like switch out this. So if you have a little bit of resources, just get one of these Destiny's Threats for Wolven. At least you will have a bit of ability to put it on, for example, March 7 if you wanted to turn March 7 to DPS. If you're pulling preservation DPS in future, it could be useful for using just that massive defense stats that the enemy has. And I'll be really honest, the rest of them at this point, I don't think it's like too fantastic. I'm not really like too intrigued by it. Final Victor, this Huynh Lightcone is interesting because you gain crit damage. This is a good alternative if your character is capping on crit rate. The only character right now I can think of in the Hunt category probably is Yanqing. So if you can't use Cruising in the Stellar Sea, the 5-star one, if you're playing like Yanqing for some reason you love his design, this is a way to go. Final Victor instead of River Flows in Spring. I think that will be my recommendation for most people. Other than that, I guess we're left with Flames Afar. This is quite conditional for destruction characters because you have to lose at least 25% of your max HP or you consume a lot of your HP. It's very good if you can proc it because it immediately heals you for 15% of your max HP and increases damage that you deal. But for now, I don't think many characters can hit this threshold. If I'm not wrong, Arlen only saps like 15%. And I think Blade only saps 50% with his ultimate. In fact, I think Blade's like enhanced basic attack only saps 10. maybe his skill steps 20 or 30%, but it's not very frequent that you gain this buff. You might as well play like a lot of the other Lightcones. It is possible, but maybe in future, maybe it's like they're telling us that it might be Sam in a bit. So who knows whether it's going to be really good for him. But for now, I don't think this is a Lightcone that I'll recommend picking up. You could just do the 5-star Lightcone in the shop, or even Clara's Lightcone if you have it. And if you guys find this video helpful, I'm going to be doing another one on the Battle Pass Lightcones right now in 2.0, whether it's still worth it to pick up, and which one I am focusing on with all the new ones out. Click at the end of the screen here if it's out. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching, and see you in the next video.